Well, let's return now to the Conservative leadership contest, and Rishi Sunak is now the clear front-runner. After Boris Johnson quit the race last night, it leaves Penny Mordaunt as the only other candidate to publicly stand against the former Chancellor. Joining us now on the programme, the Home Secretary and, of course, a supporter of Rishi Sunak, Grant Shapps. Mr Shapps, very good morning to you. You're practically a brand ambassador for XL these days, so do tell me, what did the spreadsheet say about the veracity of Boris Johnson's claim to have 102 nominations?
Well, it won't surprise you to learn that since I became Home Secretary last week, actually my head has been buried in counter-terrorism briefings, security briefings and other things. So I have not actually been able to perform that role. I've been looking after the safety and security of the country instead. You know, I saw Boris Johnson's statement last night. He said he had the numbers. But in the interest of both party unity and the country, he said he would withdraw. And I have to say, I think he did the right thing. I think that's sensible under the circumstances. I think Boris Johnson was, you know, actually in many ways, a very impressive Prime Minister, what with his response to getting beyond the Brexit thing, the COVID vaccine rollout, his response to
so why not now then?
I think he did a lot of good things. I think probably just a bit too early for him to be able to, I was going to say, I think it's probably a bit too early for him to make a return. There's still that parliamentary investigation outstanding, and I think he recognised that actually within the parliamentary party, so in other words within Conservative MPs, probably it was just too soon to be returning to the fold without some of these other matters resolved. And so I think that's why he decided not to go again. But I think actually, you know, as a party, we think that there were a lot of very, very good things he did, but he's recognised that for the unity of the country, now is not the time, and I think that's why he withdrew.
Should we take it from what you've said then, that you're now calling on Penny Mordaunt to do the same and step aside?
Well, look, that's up to Penny Mordaunt and her supporters. What I do know is that,
I know it's up to her, but what do you think? Should she do it or not?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say what I do know is that Rishi enjoys the support of a large number of Conservative MPs, and there's a very high nomination threshold of 100. So, you know, putting it the other way around, Rishi doesn't think that it's in the bag. He's speaking to colleagues this morning. He's working very hard to attract those supporters who were perhaps with Boris Johnson previously. But, you know, look, I'll leave it to Penny. She's a terrific colleague. Let's see what happens. But we won't have to wait very long, because by this lunchtime, I think specifically 2 o'clock, we will know the answer to all of this, and we'll see whether it does indeed go to a second round, which means out to the membership in the country, or whether indeed it's all over at that stage. But nothing taken for granted by Rishi at this stage.
I mean, you were, of course, you were Transport Secretary under Boris Johnson. You then supported Rishi Sunak during his, well, the previous failed bid to become leader. You're now Home Secretary under Liz Truss. I mean, the only person you haven't supported is Penny Mordaunt. I mean, aren't we just in a kind of a position at the moment right now where we have to take you at your word that you believe that Rishi Sunak is the best candidate, despite the fact you've worked for, you know, plenty of other people as well? Well,
I'm very grateful to Liz Truss for appointing me Home Secretary. Of course, is an incredibly important job, looking after, you know, the security of the nation in so many different ways. As you already pointed out, I didn't actually support Liz Truss. I did support Rishi Sunak. So
I mean, to be honest, becoming Home Secretary in her government does strike me as fairly much a statement of support.
Well, look, I mean, call me old-fashioned, but I just think it's a matter of public service and duty. We're living in incredibly dangerous times. We've got this war in Ukraine and all the spin-off from that. Homeland security and what's happening in this country enormously important. I'm here in my constituency in Welwyn Garden right now, and you know, I know that what people want is safety on the streets, security at home, and I think that the job of Home Secretary is a very, very important role to fulfil. So, you know, there's no politics involved in making sure that we're doing a good job on the most basic things that a government must do, which is look after its people and its borders, and that's why I was pleased to accept the position of Home Secretary. But as you rightly point out, I supported Rishi Sunak in the summer because I thought that economically he understood what this country needed, and boy, has he been proved right. Look what's happened since.
Well, just on that point, how much do you know of the strategy, the economic strategy that Rishi Sunak will be coming forward? I mean, for example, national insurance, should we expect to see it going back up again?
No, that's been voted through, and Rishi said he would leave that as things are now. And actually, he set out a very detailed programme through all of those weeks of the leadership contest in the summer. So unfortunately, we know a lot about what he'd do. Of course, the main thing is we know how he performed as Chancellor through the coronavirus pandemic as well. So, you know, actually we can be pretty sure about the way he'll behave. It's very straightforward. He'll bear down on inflation. He'll get growth in the economy, and he'll reduce taxes. But he'll do it in that order, which I think is really important, because that's what gives security and confidence to the markets, and therefore to the population.
Sure, but isn't now potentially the time for this to all be put to the public once again? You know, 4 prime ministers in not very long suggest that perhaps there isn't the mandate there for Rishi Sunak that there was previously. I mean, the last Tory leadership election was decided by party members representing about 0.3% of the electorate. This time the leadership's being decided by you and your colleagues who represent, let me just work this out, 0.00007% of the electorate, 700,000 of 1%. Surely it is now time to let the British public have a bit of a say in who actually runs this country.
Well, so I'm standing here in my constituency, Welwyn Hatfield. I'm in Welwyn Garden City, and every single person had the opportunity here to vote. I'm very grateful they elected me last time round in 2019. I haven't changed, I'm still here, and the same is the case in 650 constituencies around the country. We elect a party and we elect individuals as members of that party, and the 2019 manifesto is actually the document, if you like, that Rishi is standing on. So none of that.
True, but we don't tend to have 4 prime ministers in 3 years, though.
Of course, it's unusual, I give you that, but one of those prime ministers is the one who's elected with that manifesto, of course, so you're slightly playing figures there, but nonetheless, the individuals who were elected, and I was on the ballot paper, are still the same individuals who are in place. And there's a 5-year programme, and we will be delivering that manifesto. Now, you're absolutely right, there have been some bumps, not just change in prime ministers, but also COVID, also the war in Ukraine along the way. So it has been a very, very difficult period. But the manifesto is the manifesto. And that is primarily, if you want to see what Rishi is going to be doing, it's all there.
I mean, all of that would make sense if the previous Prime Minister hadn't, or in fact the current Prime Minister, I should say, hadn't torn up the 2019 manifesto and danced on its grave. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is we have been through so many iterations of the Conservative Party recently that whilst you're absolutely right, there is nothing constitutionally wrong with what is happening at the moment, you might suggest that the public should have a bit of a say in this. I mean, think of it this way. Isn't it simply the case that because, you know, Rishi Sunak, you know, isn't even popular with the Conservative Party membership in a leadership contest, he can't get the Conservatives to vote for him in a leadership contest, what chance is there of them voting for him in a general election? Isn't that what's at stake here? The electoral oblivion that the Conservative Party faces if you are bold enough to call a general election?
Well, so, I mean, actually, I think the way you describe it is quite interesting, because there was, in a sense, an excursion, a diversion from the 2019 manifesto in some ways, particularly in terms of tax policy and fiscally. Over the last couple of months, which will be now returning to, you know, what we said we should do all along, which is make sure that we run a responsible economy, that you know, for example, as things stand at the moment, inflation is borne down on, we get economic growth, and then we can reduce taxes. But you've got to do it in that order. And so actually, in a way, this is more authentic to the 2019 manifesto. And anyway, either way, after 5 years, people get to judge the outcome of the votes that they place. I don't disagree that you know, there is a lot to do and a lot to prove. We've had all the distractions of coronavirus. We've got the war in Ukraine causing that inflation. But in 2 years' time, voters around here in Welwyn Hatfield, around the country, they'll be able to make their decisions known, and they'll be able to do it based on the 2019 manifesto. Did we deliver it? Are they content with that? And they'll be able to make their minds up. So look, I think we can wait to see. In the meantime, I'm very hopeful that Rishi will be successful, but we'll have to wait and see at least until this lunchtime, and maybe longer, to find out.
Minister, just a final couple of questions. Genuinely, what has been the point of the Conservative Party for the last 3 months?
Well, look, I didn't vote for what we've had over the last couple of months, I think it is, since
Your colleaagues did, that's the
current
point.
Prime Minister's been in power, because I was, most of the MPs didn't. It was, as you rightly pointed out, the view was taken in the country amongst the membership to go in a certain direction. I think it's fair to say that it hasn't worked, and the current Prime Minister has acknowledged that, and of course resigned as a result. I think this is the opportunity to make sure that we are the party that's done what Conservatives have always done, looked after, you know, the pound in your pocket, looked after the country financially.
But we come back to the same question. You've just conceded that it didn't work, that Liz Truss didn't work. You know, the Conservative Party put her in there. Why should we trust the Conservative Party again?
Of course,
exactly.
Yeah, she said the same thing herself. But look, what I would say is actually, interestingly, and it happened during Liz's time in Downing Street, we hit the lowest unemployment that this country has seen since 1973. And Conservatives, as ever, are the party of high employment, low unemployment, and that's something that's very good that's happened. So I think, you know, it's not the case that everything has been bad. Levels of employment are incredibly important. But I think, as Liz Truss accepted herself, that the experiment with reducing taxes and doing that on borrowing does not work, and it's a good reason to put that right very quickly. As I say, I think Rishi has the right plan for that. He's proven as a Chancellor, and he was right about everything that he said in the summer about what would happen if you tried to go down that route, which is why I think he's the right person to lead this country.
Grant Shapps, always good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us this morning on Breakfast.
Likewise.